Stauch. It's a case out of El Paso County where she's a stepmother to a boy named Gannon Stauch who went missing on January 27th of 2020. His body was later found. But I just wanted to hop on here, kind of get people to start tuning in. I was in the El Paso County Courthouse today as they discussed the preliminary hearing for Letecia Stauch. So if you're joining in, tell us kind of where you're watching from, and let me know if you've been following this case. It started beginning of 2020, and oh, people from Scotland watching. Alberta, Oregon, Los Angeles. Yeah, this story involves a 11-year-old boy. Just starting to read people's comments. So I was in the courthouse in El Paso County from 9 a.m. until it got out around, I want to say like 4:30 today, 4 o'clock. All right, so let's dive right in. So Letecia Stauch was the stepmother of Gannon Stauch, and she reported him as a runaway initially, saying that he had gone over to a friend's house, wanted to play video games, and didn't return. Obviously, investigators believe that didn't happen, that she's accused of killing him. And so today we learned a lot of new evidence in the case that we hadn't heard yet. There was the 32-page affidavit has been released. It was leaked last year before it was officially released, and it's 32 pages. It didn't really go into detail as to how Gannon died and how his body was found in Florida, near Pensacola, Florida, in March. It was actually, Letecia Stauch was actually arrested before they discovered the body. So I'm going to take you through what happened today through my notes and some of my tweets. So if you didn't follow my tweets, you can go back and look at some of them. There was a lot of people in the courthouse. Both Gannon's father and Gannon's mother, biological mother, was in the courthouse, as well as grandparents and a lot of supporters who have followed this case from the beginning. Anyways, so Letecia Stauch actually was not in court. She was watching through WebEx, and she actually waived her right to be there, and she pretty much told her attorneys that, you know, I trust you, and her attorneys are Josh Tolini and Will Cook. And if you remember from the beginning, she had, you know, defense attorneys that were obviously given to her. Supposedly she didn't like them, and so she wanted to represent herself. Then she changed her mind and she got a new counsel. So these are the two new counsel. Again, it was Will Cook and Josh Tolini. And in the courtroom, I'm looking at Gannon's biological mother, and she's wearing a Sonic the Hedgehog mask. We're all wearing masks, but hers is Sonic the Hedgehog, which was something of Gannon's that was his favorite character. His favorite color was blue. So a lot of the members of his family were wearing blue. His father was wearing a blue tie. His mother had a blue outfit on and blue eyeshadow. And Letecia Stauch is seen through WebEx, and she has dark hair. almost past her elbows now. She has a black mask on, and she's in a cell that there's like a long hallway. And she is only on WebEx for just a couple minutes at the beginning, and then she comes back at the very end to waive her right for a preliminary hearing for the escape charges. So we didn't hear any evidence about the escape charge. And the judge at the very beginning was asking her many times, are you sure you don't want to be present during this preliminary hearing? There's going to be some evidence presented. He just consistently asked Letecia specifically, like, have you given this a lot of thought? Are you sure about your decision of not being present during this preliminary hearing? And she continued to say, yes, I've given this a year thought, she said at one point. So she waived her right to be there, so she leaves the WebEx, and the state starts presenting their witnesses and their evidence. So let me go to my notes real quick. The first witness was Jason Yoder. And this is a Florida sergeant with a major crime unit there. He has 18 years of experience. He was on duty the day of March 17th when workers on this bridge, it's called the Escambia River Bridge. I believe it was off of Highway 94. They discovered this suitcase, and they opened the suitcase, these workers, and they dumped it out, and they found a body. And to investigators, it appeared to be a young child. All the contents of the suitcase had been dumped out, according to this investigator. The body had been wrapped in a blanket, plural, blankets. And the body was found during a routine check of the bridge. And this bridge is on the border of 2 counties. And the investigator said that the body was in male clothing, so they believed their best guess that the child was from 9 to 14 years old. They started looking in, surrounding areas to see if there was any missing children that was, what's the right word? Similar to what they had seen of this body, as far as hair color, body type, weight, things like that, and they couldn't find any child matching this body's description. So then they went on a national website and they found a flyer of Gannon Stauch. And that's when they made the connection that this body that they found from a suitcase could be Gannon Stauch. They waited allegedly until they got the autopsy results back to call El Paso County Sheriff's Office. They said that it was dental records that really the determination, because I guess Gannon Stauch had a little bit of a gap in the front 2 teeth. This is according again to Sergeant Yoder from Florida. This was the first witness again to take the stand. And this witness talks about the injuries to Gannon Stauch's body. And it was an emotional courtroom. There was, Gannon's family was there. You could hear the crying, the sniffles, at one point I look over and I could see Gannon's father, Al Stauch, had his head in his hands just weeping when they described the injuries to Gannon Stauch's body. According to this sergeant, there was 18 sharp injuries to his body. There was a gunshot wound to his lower left jaw. and it looked like he had defense wounds on his hands and his arms. There was a bullet recovered from his skull, as well as 2 bullets in the pillow. So there, besides the body, which they said was in a fetal position, clothed, that was in like boy clothing, they said that he was wrapped in blankets, a comforter, and there was a pillow as well. And we got to see photos of these images, so we got to see exactly where investigators saw the suitcase, recovered the body. We also saw pictures of the blankets stretched out so we could see the blood stains. And the investigator also described exactly what part of the highway it was at. He described exactly, how busy that highway is at the time of night that the body was found. Well, the body was found in the morning, excuse me. So I got too ahead of myself. Investigators believe that Letecia Stauch dropped the body off there early in the morning in February, early February. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. But anyways, we got to see the prosecutors really made it known to look at the blanket, the pattern on the blankets, as well as the pillowcase, because it matched Gannon Stauch's bedding at the house. So the investigator was asked about how far from the bridge was it to the ground, and we could also see images of where the suitcase had made an impression on the ground because it had been there for a while, apparently. Because remember, this body was found in mid-March, and investigators believe that it was dropped off from Letecia Stauch in early February. And again, Gannon Stauch was reported missing January 27th. So we've gone through February and halfway through March when the suitcase was found. Okay. So we got information today about how did Gannon Stauch's body get to Florida. We got information about what detectives believe happened to Gannon Stauch and how the murder happened. As far as the motive, we don't know still. So the cause of death from the autopsy is a gunshot wound as well as blunt trauma to the head. He had a cracked skull as well as a gunshot wound in the jaw, and then 18 lacerations pretty much on his body, and then 2 stab wounds, which include 2 stab wounds. The investigators mentioned that, the body had been in the suitcase for over a month, and it was the soil, the blankets and the pillows were soiled, and there was a stench as well. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the second witness. His name is Kevin Clark. He worked as a senior analyst with CSPD, but he now currently works with the 4th Judicial District Attorney's Office as an investigator. He was requested on February 1st to support the investigation. And he really looked into the cell phone data, the GPS data, which includes the telematics of her vehicle. So they were really trying to figure out where was she, what was she doing around the time that Gannon went missing. So they show a ton of maps, and these maps have a lot of arrows to them, And this is information that they got directly from Letecia Stauch's VW car, which on the morning of Tuesday, January 28th, she allegedly went to the airport, Colorado Springs Airport, to pick up Gannon Stauch's father, Al Stauch, and because Al Stauch was training in Oklahoma with the National Guard. He's typically stationed here, but when Gannon went missing, he was out of state. So, but before she goes to the airport, allegedly, to pick him up, search records show from her phone that she was looking for cheap rental cars online. And so when she allegedly picked I'm getting ahead of myself. So investigators believe that Gannon was killed January 27th when he was reported missing by Letecia Stauch. So the next day, January 28th, detectives believe that she had put him in the back of her car in the trunk in a suitcase and taken her car to the airport, rented a vehicle at the airport while, picking up Al Stauch, and then came back in the evening around 7-ish to get her vehicle to then move the body somewhere else. So I'm trying not to jump around, but through this time in the courtroom, we're seeing all these different maps of the telematics from her vehicle and all the spots that she allegedly went. There's a lot of roads that what they called double backed, which she would turn around and go on the same road, if that makes sense. Yeah, so at 8:13 a.m., she allegedly left the home, and at 8:41 a.m., she enters the airport and goes to the rental car area to rent a vehicle. And she rented a white Kia Rio. And she's also seen on surveillance, I believe, and there's like a ticket stamp of when she re-entered the Colorado Springs Airport parking lot, which was around 7 o'clock that night, with her vehicle. So she leaves the airport with Al Stauch, and then she comes back by herself, allegedly, to get her vehicle. And around 7:27 a.m., I guess her telematics on her vehicle said that, or 7:27 p.m., she was in the Falcon area. So that was one place that investigators searched initially for Gannon. And then, they went through, minute by minute of where she drove. And so, she goes north. So from, the Colorado Springs Airport, she goes to the Falcon area, and then she kind of backtrack and then goes to I-25 and then gets on Highway 105. I know if you're not from Colorado Springs area, you don't know these roads. But the most northern point that she went was at 9:19 p.m. And this is in Douglas County. This is in a different county than where Gannon Stauch was reported missing. And this is also the area where a piece of evidence was discovered, too, during the searches. And this is off of Perry Park Road. There's a specific part of the road where it took her longer to go through. When she went one way, it took her a few minutes, and then on the way, it took her 6 minutes longer to go through that same area. And so it was called the S curve on that Perry Park Road. And that's where an area that they searched and they actually found a piece of evidence. And it was a plywood, like a piece of wood with Gannon's blood on it. And remember, this is in January and early February. So we had had days of snow, and some days it would be sunny. But searchers were dealing with feet of snow to have to look through. Anyways, so going back to the telematics and the timeline. So they have a map specifically of that night, the 28th of January, of where her locations were. And then fast forward to January 31st, where she was renting, or one of her aunts had a rental car and she used it to move the body. And the location of January 28th and the location of January 31st, where she went, are like identical. And they compared those on the screen in the courtroom. And she didn't know at the time that the investigators had put a tracking device, a GPS tracking device, on her aunt's vehicle, a rental vehicle. It was a Nissan. And so they matched those two up, and that was a main point of searching, was that S-curve. I will answer questions at the end. I'm just going to try to go through my notes, and then I can answer questions. So if you have questions, try to hold off until the end. Okay. So they jumped around in the courtroom because different witnesses could testify again about different days. So she also, this was another point that the state made in the courtroom, was that there was 2 hours of where Letecia Stauch's phone was put on airplane mode, which means that they couldn't track her cell data because her phone was on airplane mode. And so her phone went back, or it was connected to Wi-Fi near a nearby Hilton Hotel and Starbucks, which is near the Briargate shops at 9:51 p.m. So then she could receive text messages again and download all the missed information that she had for the 2 hours previous, if that makes sense. She picked up her daughter Harley at 11:30 p.m. at Massage Envy at Carefree and Powers in Colorado Springs. Sorry, I'm going through my notes. Okay, and before January 31st, both Letecia's car and phone were taken into evidence, and so that's why she used her aunt's vehicle to move the body, allegedly, on January 31st, according to detectives. Sorry, I'm gonna scroll up. I believe that the beginning of the day was more emotional for the Stauch family because this was, I think, the first time that they were seeing photos of where, of the evidence as far as the suitcase that carried Gannon's body, as well as photos from the crime, from the actual crime scene. Which was his bedroom. Okay. Sorry, bear with me. I'm trying to go through my notes. It's a lot. And if you didn't watch today's coverage, the judge, he even said he took so many notes that he needed to review them before making a decision. And so that decision will come September 23rd at 9 a.m. Okay. Well, I'll just truck along. Okay, so on Saturday, so Friday, January 31st, she allegedly moves the body. And then on Saturday, Letecia Stauch rents a budget rental van in the morning and also purchased a Verizon cell phone and Telluride. And detectives believe that this is the rental van that drove to Pensacola, Florida, dropped off the body, and then continued on to then Orlando, Florida, and then on to South Carolina, where she was arrested in March. So this is the first time that we learned about how did Gannon Stauch's body get to Florida. We had no idea that she had made all these rental car purchases. It was like the first rental car that she used at the or that she got from the airport was like only $36 a day or something like that. And she really used it to take Al Stauch home and used it for a couple hours. And then, you know, she returned and got her car. And then she rented a budget rental van to then move Gannon's body to Florida. And her 17-year-old daughter was also with her when she moved, when she traveled to Florida. We also saw the receipt from Candlewood Suites where she stayed on Tuesday, February 4th. And this is the day that investigators believe she made the drop of Gannon Stauch's body in the suitcase off of the bridge. The location is 1.8 miles from this hotel. And there was a data point, I believe, from either her cell phone or I think it's the Verizon cell phone at 4:15 a.m. 1.8 miles away. And then it was pinged again at 5:10 a.m. in the parking lot of the hotel, as well as 11:10 a.m. So the third witness is Deputy Sergeant Patrick Yonkin. I hope I'm saying that right. He has worked with the El Paso County Sheriff's Office for 15 years. And he was one of the first deputies at the Lorson Ranch home, the Stauch home in El Paso County, when, you know, again, Letecia Stauch reported Gannon Stauch as a runaway at 6:55 p.m. on January 27th. And so we're seeing, you know, he's on the stand, as well as we're going to watch his body cam video from that initial report, as well as, you know, in the home. And he was tasked with searching the home for Gannon. And I mean, he's looking in closets, he's looking under the bed, he's looking just everywhere, in the garage. One thing that should be noted that, you know, might have not come across on my Twitter account was that in the garage, the lights were off. He just used a flashlight and was searching around. And at one point, you know, the investigators asked Letecia, "Can we see your driver's license?" And so she's like, okay. So she goes to the car, to her car, and the investigator, Deputy Sergeant Yonkins, you know, he's like, "Did you drive this today?" And she, you know, kind of was hesitant and was like, "What do you mean?" You know, like, it was a weird encounter, but she eventually said no, she hadn't driven her car that day. And a lot of us in the courtroom asked each other, like, did you see the suitcase in the back of the truck, the back of her car in the trunk? And there was a couple of us that said, yeah, I think I saw it when he flashed the light on it. But again, it was dark. They didn't flip on the light in the garage when they were searching it that initial January 27th day. And then, you know, he looked under the bed. He's calling Gannon's name. He's listening to see if he could hear someone breathing. Just, you know, but of course there's nothing. He doesn't, you know, touch the bedding at all. And later in the courtroom, we saw photos from Letecia Stauch's phone from January 27th of Gannon Stauch in bed, laying in bed, the morning of January 27th. And she had taken 2 photos. One was like at the entrance of the bedroom, pointing at him, sleeping. It looked like he was sleeping. And then another at the foot of his bed, another angle. And the bedding correlated to the bedding that was found in the suitcase that he was wrapped up in. And the state really made that known to the judge. You know, they compared it. They even showed the 2 photos of him alive, as well as the blankets sprawled out that Florida investigators took. The photos of the evidence of the blankets that were found in Florida were taken by Florida investigators, and the photos that they also compared it to was Letecia Stauch's photos from her phone. I got a little ahead. That was at the end of the day. I got a little ahead of myself. We also can hear on body cam video of Letecia Stauch talking to another deputy. And she's talking about like his typical day, you know, who he hangs out with, that she's already called their parents to try to figure out if they'd seen Gannon. You know, she is also talking to them about, you know, what she remembers he was last wearing. I think it was like blue jeans and a blue shirt and like a windbreaker, a silver windbreaker. And she also points out in his room on the body cam video that we're watching in the courtroom, like a dresser, and she says those are his favorite things. It doesn't make sense that he would leave them behind. And one of the deputies asks, you know, is his bike missing? You know, and she said no. And you know, she's very nonchalant during this initial first meeting with deputies, at least from what I witnessed in the courtroom today. Yeah, so she's just telling deputies what, you know, Gannon typically does in a day. And she said that he was going to leave to go to a friend's house to play video games and just didn't return. Yeah, the Switch video game, that was missing. That was like the one game console, I believe, that was missing out of the room. Sorry, I'm getting tweet notifications to make sure. There's actually a missing 11-year-old boy right now in Colorado Springs. He's autistic. Let me see if I can find his name. Yeah, right now, El Paso County Sheriff's Office is searching for a missing and endangered 11-year-old Phoenix Gragg, who was last seen in the 1600 block of Hampton. He's wearing a blue shirt, black shorts, and black shoes. Sorry, I'm kind of getting off topic, but it's just so sad that today we're talking about an 11-year-old boy who went missing in El Paso County, and then tonight there's another report of a missing 11-year-old boy. So I was just getting notifications to see if they had found him or not. Okay, back to Letecia Stauch. Yeah, so, Sergeant Yonkins, he goes into the garage. He asks Letecia if she had driven her Volkswagen that day. She responds no. Meanwhile, she goes into the car to get her driver's license. In the trunk, you can see him lifting up the trunk to look, and I thought, it appears to be a suitcase in the trunk, but of course they didn't realize, they just were there responding to a call of a runaway. They don't know, that there was a homicide investigation that they needed to look into at that point. And then a few days later, they do have a warrant for the home, and they do a more extensive search, and that's when they found a lot of the blood. There was blood in the garage. There was blood, obviously, in his bedroom. And I can get into that more in a bit. Hold on. One of the deputies, I thought this was interesting, mentioned something like a text that, Al Stauch had received, something about bath salts, and that his friend wouldn't let him play a video game or something like that. And, Al mentioned it to deputies and thought that was strange. Yeah, he was wearing a blue jacket and blue jeans. No blood was found initially in the bedroom when they first searched, but again, it was a real quick search. It wasn't as extensive as they did when they had the search warrant for the home. And Sergeant Yonkins, he had mentioned there was no indication of something violent had occurred that initial day that they went into the home. And it was Deputy Parker that was asking questions to Letecia Stauch as Sergeant Yonkins was searching the home. He went in the storage room in the basement. He went through all the rooms in the house, looking for Gannon Stauch that night. So they eventually did see in the garage a red liquid substance on the stairs on the floor. And then we took a break, and then we're going to our fourth witness, which is Lieutenant John Sarkison. I think that's how you say his name. He's with the El Paso County Sheriff's Office for 12 years with the Patrol Division. Sorry. He said he started working on this case starting in January 31st. Of 2020. And he was in charge of the searches. So he was over like the drone searches, the four-wheelers, the horses. He talked about all the different types of searches that they had. They talked about the prodding of the poles because there was snow during that time, and canines. They used any tools available so that they could search for 11-year-old Gannon Stauch. At one point, he said that they even called in the Colorado Park and Wildlife to help them with like sonars, like in the water and things like that they didn't have access to if it was just them. He talked about how like some days there would be 20 to 30 searchers, and then some days there would be hundreds searching for Gannon Stauch. He described how the snow was. It was very thick in the area north of Palmar Lake, which is one of the places that was an extensive search when they found, it was a canine had alerted to the, to this like plywood, and it had blood on it from Gannon Stauch. So he's talking about when he witnessed the plywood board, and he said he tilted it a little bit to see if what he was thinking it was truly what it was, and then he said he barely moved it, and then before taking the photo that we saw in the courtroom, he didn't think, it had been placed there like that day or anything, because there had been snow on top of it, and the snow didn't look like it had been stepped on or anything like that. There was foot marks around it, and that's something that the defense asked, this investigator, did you, look into any of those foot marks, the footprints or whatever, and they said no, they didn't look into the footprints around it. And he described the plywood as like 2 feet by 2.5 feet plywood piece. And, throughout this day in court, they described in the garage that there was like a woodworking, there was a lot of wood in the garage. So they kind of made that connection from, obviously, what they found off of Perry Park Road in Douglas County, as well as what was found in the home, in the garage. And they did talk about how that the blood on the plywood was confirmed, it was confirmed Gannon Stauch's blood. Okay, then they called the 5th witness, which was Rosario Hubble, and he is, I believe, a sergeant with the El Paso County Sheriff's Office. He typically is assigned to the Midnight Division of Patrol, but he's also the supervisor of the Major Crime Unit. So, he became involved in the case on January 28th when Fountain Police called to see if they needed assistance. He confirmed that this was a missing person, but it quickly evolved into a homicide investigation. He described, this is Sergeant Hubble is the one who showed or talked about the photos of Gannon Stauch in bed from Letecia Stauch's phone. Okay. So these photos were taken at 8:14 a.m. on January 27th, as well as another photo was taken at 8:17 a.m., so just a few minutes later, of Gannon Stauch sleeping. And Sergeant Hubble did not believe that he was dead in the photos. There wasn't any sign of any major wounds or anything like that. And then this is the part where they compared these photos that were taken from Letecia Stauch's phone to the photos that Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office took in Florida when they found Gannon Stauch's body. And there was similarities with the bedding. There was 2 blankets that were found, as well as a pillow. Okay, and this Sergeant Hubble also wanted the court to know that the bedding in the deputy's body cam video that was shown just previously, an hour or so before in the courtroom, was different from the bedding that was in Letecia Stauch's photos, as well as the photos that were taken in Florida. So obviously, detectives believe Letecia Stauch had changed the bedding. So at this point, they were very concerned that they had, foul play was involved. So their search, he was talking about the search for blood was they wanted to find blood in the home. So then they started searching for blood in the home. They found a significant stain underneath. They had to remove Gannon Stauch's bed, and underneath the bed there was in the corner of the room was a stain that this investigator first said it looked like it had been cleaned up. It was crusty, the carpet, and then when they lifted up the carpet through the padding onto the cement, you could see a stain. And this stain is something that they said they didn't use any type of agent to bring up. It was already, with your naked eye, you could see the stain on the cement. But on the carpet, you couldn't, unless they used this, they call it a blue star process, which is luminol. And you have to have a dark light, and then they spray it, and it takes a couple minutes to activate. And then this blue glow starts appearing if there was any sign of blood or cleaning product that was used to clean up something. And so they had sprayed it, and the wall of Gannon Stauch's bedroom was blood splatter around where the bed was. They even found blood in the outlet, which was right next to the mattress. And when they removed the sheets off of the mattress, there was also a stain. And of course, these investigators, they swabbed every area, and they tested it to see if it was Gannon's blood, and there was a match for each one, according to investigators in the courtroom. So when we are seeing these pictures of evidence of the blood splatter, and there was just tons of tape on the wall, and each tape represented a blood splatter mark. I look over to to Gannon Stauch's parents, and they're crying. It's just an emotional day for them, and I can't imagine, what this year, since January 27th, this whole last year or more, have been for them. But again, Letecia Stauch's not in the courtroom. She waived her right to be there, and she was on WebEx just briefly at the beginning, so she's not there to see the reaction of these parents. Anyways, back to the evidence found in the bedroom. So, they're spraying throughout the home to see kind of where it started, where did the blood stain start, and where did it go towards. And so they said that it started in Gannon's bedroom, which is in the basement, and it went through his room into, there's a little storage room area, which is right underneath the stairs, and then up the stairs, then you go through the living room area a little bit, and then into the garage and down the stairs of the garage, and into the garage. And there were parts of, there was like a piece of carpet that was cut out like a mat right below the stairs in the garage. And they had two photos comparing, what the mat looked like without the luminol, and then what it was with the luminol, and you could see, blood splatter on the carpet with the luminol. Wow. They also showed a photo of women's Nike shoes, and they on the sole of the bottom of the sole of the shoe, they swabbed it, and it was also came back positive of Gannon Stauch's blood. And then they also swabbed the inside of the sole to confirm that it was Letecia Stauch's shoe. They talked a lot about the process that they do as far as how do they confirm what they are collecting is actually blood, or how do they know it's positive hit for cleaning solution and things like that. And And they said that they typically have presumptive hits, and then they go back and, check with DNA and make sure that it is blood, and then try to figure out whose blood it is and things like that. I'm just going through my notes to make sure I hit everything. So this is kind of how detectives believe that, Letecia Stauch killed Gannon in his bedroom and then, carried his body towards her vehicle, the trunk of her vehicle. And that's how she transferred him at the time, initially. I mean, we saw the first, the arrest affidavit, and it was 32 pages, and it described that, they believed that he was killed in his bedroom. But at the time when the arrest affidavit was released, we didn't know exactly how and what his injuries were like. It was like there were so many counts against her at the time. Okay, so this is when it really, I thought, got really interesting, and when I felt like they put the puzzle pieces together, at least the state did. They showed photos of the master bedroom, which is in the southeast corner of the house, and this investigator, he pointed to where they found a gun, which they believe is the murder weapon, and it was on top of the dresser. And again, you got to remember that Al Stauch is in Oklahoma, and he's out of state, and the only people at the home at the time was, Letecia Stauch, Gannon Stauch's little sister, Lena, and then Harley, Letecia's daughter. But according to investigators, the 17-year-old daughter was at work, and they ruled out everyone else but Letecia Stauch, is what I'm trying to say. So anyways, back to the photo of the master bedroom. So they recovered a gun. It's a 9mm Smith & Wesson gun, and it's on top of a dresser next to, I believe it was a teddy bear and a photo of Gannon Stauch. And they took DNA from the trigger guard and the back strap, and it matched Letecia Stauch. The defense was trying to say that there was 4 matches, 3 of which were male, but and 1 was female, and it was Letecia, but the state was pretty much saying no one else entered the home at that time, and that it was her DNA on the gun mostly, Sergeant Hubble said that the examiner believed the bullet that had come from Gannon Stauch's skull came from the gun that was in the master bedroom. So this gun that we're seeing a photo of in the courtroom. Yeah, so there was 3 DNA contributors, 2 of which were male and 1 female on the gun. One of the defense attorneys was asking Sergeant Hubble, what makes the mechanism to make the Blue Star agent glow? And he was like, I don't know. Sergeant Hubble couldn't answer that. He didn't know. And then, he was asking, can any phone take photos of, when it starts illuminating? And he was like, no, they have a specific camera that they use to take photographs of the Blue Star process. And he said it takes about 15-30 minutes, or when it is a positive hit, it will last maybe 15 to 30 minutes, is what Sergeant Hubble was saying. And he's describing again the blood stain on the carpet. He said that, you couldn't see it with a naked eye. He felt it, and it was crusty, like it had been cleaned. And then when they lifted it up, you could visibly see the stain on the cement. Let me see what else. Yeah, the defense was trying to point out that there was DNA found on the gun, but the major and then the state was like, but the major profile was Letecia Stauch on the gun. They even tried to say that Al's DNA was on the gun, but again, the state was like, the prosecutors were saying he has been ruled out by the FBI. He was out of state. He was in Oklahoma when Gannon Stauch went missing. So the sixth witness is FBI agent Andrew Cohen, and he's been with FBI since 2014. And he was acting in a supporting role to the El Paso County Sheriff's Office. They were using the FBI for resources for searches, additional investigators to do interviews with witnesses, and they also used the FBI for their expertise with their laboratories. So, the state's asking this FBI agent, typically do you, in a case like this, would it be typical to look at those people closely associated with the victim? And, he said yes. Absolutely. So they went through the list about, Al Stauch, is he considered a suspect? And this agent said no, he was ruled out. Then they go through, they went through, who was the next person? I believe it was Landon, Gannon's mother, and they said no, she was in South Carolina, she was ruled out. And then they went to even the 8-year-old sister, she was ruled out. And then they went through everyone that could have been in the home. And the FBI agent said they were all ruled out except for Letecia Stauch. The district attorney, Michael Allen, asked if the defendant had tried to hide evidence, and this agent Cohen said that she had. The defense pointed out that the back door to the home had been opened 10 times, according to the AGT data. And at the end of today, the prosecutors said that it's a 6 feet high fence and that there was a padlock to it. So that's kind of, they didn't go further into detail about that, but I just thought it was interesting that the defense brought that up, and then that's how the state kind of squashed their theory. Yeah. Agent Cohen said that they don't have any evidence that anyone else entered the home. Agent Cohen was also asked, when did this missing child case turn into a homicide investigation? And he said it took only a few days after Gannon went missing. So this is at the end of January when this happened. But again, Gannon Stauch's body wasn't discovered until March 17th, and she was arrested in early March. Letecia Stauch. Agent Cohen started talking about Letecia Stauch's character, and Agent Cohen said that, you would get small nuggets of truth, but it was surrounded by false statements, or what's the other word he used? Fabricating information. Even the defense at one point said that she had a history, Letecia Stauch had a history of fabricating information or stuff, even before being looked at as a homicide suspect. And I don't understand why the defense pointed that out, but they also mentioned, could the injuries that Gannon had received, like the cracked skull or, the bullet in his head, could that have been post-mortem injuries? And the state, read the autopsy, or had Agent Cohen read the autopsy, as far as the cause of death was blunt trauma to the head as well as a gunshot wound. So kind of ruled that theory out from the defense. At the end of the day today, Letecia Stauch came back on WebEx, and she waived her right for a preliminary hearing on the escape charge, which is a different case, because that happened after the murder. That was when she was when she was extradited to Colorado, is when the escape charge happened. And so we didn't hear evidence of the escape charge because she waived her right for that preliminary hearing. So on September 23rd at 9 a.m., when the judge is supposed to make a decision on his findings, that's when he'll make a ruling for both the murder case as well as the escape case. So that's kind of it. That's all my notes. So that was 11 pages of notes. And I'm sure I didn't go through all my tweets, but if you guys have questions, I will take them now. If you guys have questions. Someone's asking me, how do you stay mentally okay when reporting on all these horrific crimes? I try to keep my work at home, my work at work, and I try to enjoy my time with my dogs, or, with my fiance, or with my family. It's really tough, because you're constantly surrounded by, you're seeing, families' lives destroyed. I just reported a couple days ago about a 6-year-old little girl who went on a vacation with her family to Glenwood Springs, and she went on an amusement park ride, and she died on it. And that's just, she was so young, 6 years old, to have that happen to her. So it's tough. I have good people in my life. I try to stay positive as much as I can and enjoy when I'm off. I enjoy life. Trying to answer. Oh, someone is so sweet. JLL, thank you so much. That was really sweet. I know when I'm typing in the courtroom or when I'm tweeting on my phone, I sometimes misspell things, and I apologize for that. I'm just typing as quickly as I can, and sometimes spell check messes me up. Like today I had said sole to a shoe, and it spelled the other sole, and someone called me out for that, but it happens. If you guys have any questions, please put them in the comments so I can try to answer them. And if you missed earlier, once this gets published, you can go back and watch it again. Yeah, people are asking about Letecia Stauch's daughter. Was she in the courtroom? Harley is her name. She was not in the courtroom that I know of. And people were asking me about has she been charged with anything? Not that I know of. And also, people have been asking me, was she in the van traveling to Florida with Gannon Stauch's body in the back? And she was. So someone's asking me, what was the biggest moment today? I think hearing about Gannon's injuries and the autopsy results was the biggest moment. The courtroom, you could, I mean, the right side of the room was all the family, and it was just people crying, people weeping. I mean, it was a really emotional day at the beginning, and that was from the Florida investigator that spoke about finding the body and what the body was like. That was really tough. Yeah, so there was 3 bullets recovered, 1 in Gannon Stauch's skull, and then 2 in the pillow that was also inside the suitcase. There will not be court tomorrow. It was supposed to be a 2-day preliminary hearing, but the state got through its witnesses quicker than they thought, and so it ended today. The judge is going to go over his notes, and he's going to make a ruling on September 23rd at 9 a.m. So there will not be court for Letecia Stauch tomorrow. Someone's asking if the trial will air on TV. That is something we don't know. The judge did not grant our EMC, which is expanded media coverage. So that means like we couldn't have a camera in the courthouse today. So we could only live tweet. And they were sticklers about that. They didn't want us to be typing too loud, or they didn't want to see us like at all taking any photos in the courthouse at all, not even in the hallways. So yeah. And at the end of the day, when the judge said that he couldn't make a decision today, even though both the prosecution and the defense wanted a ruling today, the judge just said, I want to make this decision right, and I want to go through my notes. And so yeah. So the state was asking if the family could have access to the WebEx privately so that they wouldn't have to travel back to Colorado, because some of them are from Pennsylvania, some of them are from South Carolina, so other states away. So the judge said that he would have to make that decision at a later date as well. Oh, people are asking if Letecia Stauch is not in the right mind. They have done 2 mental evaluations on her. So someone is saying they're buffering. I don't know what that means. Like it's not working. Yeah, if you didn't follow my tweets, you can follow my tweets. It's at Lauren Scharf TV. That's where I was giving live tweet updates. And then also I did a report on Fox 21 News as well. So you can go to our website, fox21news.com. Someone's asking me, where's Sarah? She's in Missouri right now. I'm watching her dogs. They didn't talk about the missing Switch gaming system, if it was ever found. They didn't mention that today. They briefly said that it was one of the items missing out of the room, but other than if they had found it, they did not mention that. Someone says, if it binds to trial, will there ever be a chance for it to be televised? That's a good question for the judge, and maybe he'll answer that question when we get to it, but right now he's deciding whether or not this case will be bound to trial. people are asking why it's taking so long to decide. Usually it's instant. Well, I mean, this was a multiple month long investigation, you know, and the judge just wants to look over his notes and make sure, you know, that he makes the right decision. Okay, I'm going to take a couple more questions and then I'm going to head to bed. Someone says I have a soothing voice and I keep drifting off. Oh no, that's not good. I'm making people fall asleep. Okay. I'm scrolling through these. Okay, 2 more questions, guys, and then I can... Yes, so someone's asking if Letecia Stauch spoke in court. She did briefly at the very beginning, just kind of telling the judge that she was waiving her right to be there, that she had this decision, she'd made this decision in a year. She had a year to make this decision, and that she was confident in her attorneys, that they could, you know, that she trusted. She said, quote, "I have trust in Mr. Tolini and Mr. Cook," which are both of her attorneys. The judge was asking her, "Do you understand that there will be some evidence presented that don't you want to see it?" And she said, "I have trust in, you know, her She said, "No, thank you, sir." You know, she just was adamant. I mean, the judge asked her multiple times, "Are you sure you want to not be here?" You know, and he asked her in multiple different ways too. Did the prosecution give any idea of motive? There was no mention of motive or even speculation to motive today at all. Someone's asking if this is a death penalty case. I don't believe... Oh, well, actually, in Colorado, I believe it was sometime in July when Colorado rescinded the death penalty. So they didn't mention it today at all. So I don't know if it's still on the table. I'm not sure. Yeah, if you're just joining, please go back and watch earlier because I went through all my notes so you can get a better understanding of what happened today. Again, I spoke about Letecia Stauch's preliminary hearing. She is accused of killing her stepson, 11-year-old Gannon Stauch, on January 27th, and then she allegedly shot him in the lower left jaw, and there was like 18 laceration marks on him, including 2 stab wounds, and there was also defense wounds on his arms and his hands, and investigators believe that she took him to Florida in a suitcase and dropped the body off a bridge near Pensacola, Florida, before she was arrested in South Carolina in early March. And then his body wasn't discovered until March 17th. And again, did I say the wrong day? Someone's made. Yeah, so it was January 27th of 2020. So it's been way longer than a year. January 27th of 2020. So this is pre-pandemic when this happened. So there was a ton of searches, no masks, people weren't wearing masks. We were having press conferences. The family had multiple press conferences that were made by El Paso County Sheriff's Office, It wasn't something that they just, posted on, Facebook or Twitter on their own. It was something in conjunction with the El Paso County Sheriff's Office that this family, it was just Landon and Al Stauch and the 8-year-old little girl, Gannon's sister as well. But, and Letecia Stauch did do one interview, and it was with a KKTV, another local TV station here in Colorado Springs, but she didn't want to show her face. She had her back to the camera, and investigators believe that she left that interview and moved Gannon's body from where she had put it north of Palmer Lake in Douglas County. So we're getting more of a clear timeline of what happened that January 27th and 28th and days later, of how, we're learning how Gannon Stauch's body got to Florida. How did he die? Where did he die? But still, a question on many people's mind is, what was her motive? Why did she do this? And we might never know. I don't know. Well, anyways, I'm going to head to bed, but thank you guys so much for watching. And if you missed part of what I had recapped today, please go back and watch this video earlier. And thank you again so much for watching tonight. See you guys next time.